In my previous video, we ended up talking about homeostasis. Homeostasis is how organisms maintain a stable internal environment. Um, One thing before I move on, think of warm-blooded and cold-blooded, right? If you know the difference between a warm-blooded and cold-blooded animal, warm-blooded animal is able to basically carry out the processes of homeostasis, um, or excuse me, body heat, I should say, by itself, right? I don't have to go sit in the sun to get myself warm. A snake, a reptile, is gonna you'll see it outside laying on a rock to warm itself. Okay, it uses external conditions to maintain that homeostasis. We, on the other hand, can do things with our own bodies to warm up or cool ourselves down. All right. So all organisms have to maintain homeostasis. All living organisms. Okay. It's just that some will go about it in a few different ways. So I ended up talking about feedback control loops. So there's two types of feedback control loops that you have to be aware of. First one is called a negative feedback control loop. Okay. In a negative feedback control loop, it says the response goes in the opposite direction of the stimulus to return the body to its homeostatic conditions. Okay. What does that mean? Think of your house. In your house, you have a thermostat. Your thermostat is set at, I'll give you my example, it's set at 72 degrees. In the summer, we have the air conditioning, right? So when it starts to get too hot, the thermostat recognizes it. So the heat is the stimulus, right? The thermostat picks up on that and then it'll kick on the air conditioner to say, hey, we need some cool air to start cooling down the house. All right. So that air conditioning will return my house back to 72 degrees. It stays at that set temperature. All right. That's called a negative feedback control loop. It goes in the opposite direction of the stimulus. So in that example, the heat from the outside is the stimulus. We're going the opposite direction of that. All right. Our body's the same way. It says much like the thermostat in your home, if it gets too high, we have these responses that allow us to return it to normal. So, for example, if you're outside and you're running and it's hot, what do? Well, you sweat, right? Now, sweat is a way for us to release body heat um, by evaporation. So, if sweat gets on our skin, it evaporates, it carries heat away from our body. All right, that's one way that our body maintains body temperature or homeostasis. And again, there's a lot of different ways that we maintain homeostasis. We're going to do a couple things in class to discuss this a little bit more. But you have this little diagram down there showing how a negative feedback control loop works. Okay. The other one is called a positive feedback control loop. Positive feedback control loop is a response to a stimulus that results in a deviation from the set point, where it takes the body away from homeostasis. Now, that may seem counterintuitive. Why do I want to take my body away from homeostasis? Well, one thing I should let you know is that most of our feedback control loops in the body are negative feedback control loops. They maintain homeostasis. However, there are a couple instances where we have positive feedback control loops. All right. Probably the two most recognizable examples that I know of would be blood clotting, number one. So, like you form a scab, you get a cut, and we send all these clotting mechanisms to the area. That is not homeostasis, but um, we're overdoing it, right? We're sending more and more to that area to stop the flow of blood and to hopefully heal that injury. Another one, which is a pretty recognizable one, is childbirth. Okay, childbirth, there are a lot of things that happen in childbirth that are way far away from homeostasis. Now, why does our body do this? Well, not my body, right? Why does a female's body do this? Well, it's taking it away from homeostasis to produce something or to cause an action, right? And that in this situation, and that's what this little diagram down here on the bottom is. Okay, in this situation, it's stretching the uterus and it's um, allowing the baby to get out of the birth canal. All right. So those are positive feedback control loops. Again, positive goes away from the set point and it goes in the same direction as the stimulus. Negative feedback control loop goes back towards the set point and goes in the opposite direction of the stimulus. Now, this next slide, and again, this is something that I think you guys will have a pretty good understanding of, requirements of an organism. What do we need? What does the human body need to live? Okay, we need water. You know that, most abundant substance in the body. It helps us transport substances, helps us maintain body heat, gives good environments for reactions and processes to take place. Number two, we need food. Food gives us energy, gives us raw materials to build, makes you healthy. Number three, we need oxygen. Oxygen, again, we can go back to biology many times this year, but I use oxygen to give me energy. I ask this question every year in anatomy and biology. I say, why do we need oxygen? Well, to live. Yeah, okay. Why else do we need oxygen? To breathe. Yes, that's true. But the number one reason is I use the oxygen to give me energy in my cells through cellular respiration. 4, we need heat. Okay, we got to have heat. This may seem kind of silly, or maybe I don't know, it may seem self-explanatory, but we got to stay at that internal body temperature around 98 degrees, which is pretty warm, in order for our reactions to take place in our body at the right conditions. If we remember back from biology, we have these things called enzymes that function at a set range or optimal conditions. And if our body gets out of those optimal conditions, they don't function real well. Okay, the higher the heat, the more rapidly chemical reactions take place to a point. Number 5, pressure. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, there's 2 types of pressure that are really important to us. One is called atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure is the pressure of the weight of the atmosphere pressing down on us. Well, why do we need that? Well, when you breathe, you are not actively sucking in air. Okay, you are allowing the pressure to change in your lungs. And then when the pressure changes in your lungs, the atmospheric pressure causes oxygen to come in or carbon dioxide to go out. All right. That atmospheric pressure allows you to breathe. That's why in areas where there's very low pressure, like say go to Denver, that's a mile high up in elevation, it's a little harder to breathe or to get oxygen. Okay. And we'll do some demonstrations in class about atmospheric pressure. Okay. And the other type of pressure that we need hydrostatic pressure. That's pressure from liquid. What liquid pressure would we have in our body? Hopefully you can guess. It's going to be blood pressure. Okay, blood pressure is the pressure of the blood against our arteries and veins traveling throughout our body. That is one of the biggest vital signs that they check. You go to the doctor, the first thing they do is they slap that cuff on your arm, and they're going to check your blood pressure. Extremely important vital sign. I will stop that video there.